Hello everyone, and welcome again to AmeriCorps VISTA. We're so excited to have you here as our newest class of AmeriCorps VISTA members and participate in the first day of your orientation, launching your VISTA service. My name is Eric Powell, and I'm joined by my colleague,
Kaylee Ramovich.
We'll be your hosts today from VISTA headquarters in Washington, D.C. You will also see several of our colleagues, Scott Weinrobe, Charles Wang, and a few others in the chat and Q&A to help us monitor and answer your questions.
So now that you know a little about who we are and where we're located, we want to know where you're serving. If you are unable to use the annotation tool, please write your city and state in the chat panel. With all of the people attending this webinar, it is great for people to start making connections and see who may be serving near them. Let's use the annotation tool to get a better visual. First, click on the squiggly line icon in the toolbar on the left side of the slide. Then, click on the arrow in the toolbar to activate and click on the map where you start serving as a VISTA member. If you are on a mobile device, the annotation tool is not available, so please type the state name in the chat. As you know, we have VISTA members serving in all 50 states, as well as in U.S. territories and tribal communities. Looks like we have a lot of people in the Northeast, in the Midwest, a few people in Alaska and Hawaii, some in Puerto Rico.
All over the place.
As you look at this map to see where everyone is located, remember that you can connect with each other through the VISTA Campus map as well.
So now that you have a feel for where everyone else is located, we want to quickly go over with you the session objectives for today. Obviously, we're going to describe VISTA's mission and the program. You probably know a little bit about it, but we want to make sure you understand the details and the rules of the program. Talk a little bit about the recent accomplishments of the VISTA program. Identify support persons and where you can find resources and help when you need it. Highlight action items that need your attention immediately. And at the very end of this webinar, we will officially administer the oath of service, which welcomes you officially into the VISTA program.
So let me welcome you to AmeriCorps VISTA. You're about to join a national movement with a very rich history. There are about 520 VISTA members beginning service with you today and this month. This year, more than 5,000 VISTA members are serving in rural and in urban areas in all 50 states and in several territories and tribal nations. Volunteers in Service to America, or VISTA, has been supporting and at times leading the charge towards economic equity for more than 50 years. Our strength comes from the talent, motivation, and energy of our members, soon to be one of you. So let me thank you for stepping up to share your skills and passion to serve our communities. It's an honor for me to welcome you on behalf of the VISTA program. I hope you feel the warmth and support from us and your fellow VISTA members. Now, as we're just getting to know one another, let's take a look at a few milestones in VISTA's history that have led us all to this moment.
The VISTA program was born out of the Civil Rights Movement and the War on Poverty in the mid-60s, and social equity and economic opportunity remains our mission. Our first volunteers were assigned in 1965 to Appalachia, Hartford, Connecticut, and the camps of migrant farm workers in California. President Johnson, whom you can see in this photo, said to those first VISTAs, "The initials of your organization spell VISTA. It is an appropriate name, for you will be opening up new vistas of hope for the poor, achievement for yourself, and greatness for your nation."
Fast forward about 30 years to 1993, and VISTA joins AmeriCorps, becoming part of a network of national service programs of the Corporation of National and Community Service, or CNCS. You may have heard of some of our grantees and partners, such as Habitat for Humanity, City Year, Teach for America, as well as the Rockefeller Foundation and Service Year. That's in addition to the programs we manage directly, such as NCCC, FEMA Corps, and Senior Corps, in addition to AmeriCorps VISTA. You are joining the ranks of over 220,000 VISTAs that have served. Just to name a few, there's George R.R. Martin, author of Game of Thrones, who served as a VISTA. There's Senator Jay Rockefeller of West Virginia. Ray Maliochki, you may know from Click and Clack of Car Talk. And Congresswoman Gwen Moore of Wisconsin, just to name a few.
We know that the VISTA program is committed to economic equity, but if someone were to ask you, what is VISTA's mission, how would you explain it? What really makes VISTA unique in the federal government? Well, let us show you this, which is our elevator speech. The VISTA program strengthens organizations that alleviate poverty through the mobilization of volunteers and resources. And in addition to our missions, there are 4 key principles that underpin the program. First is ending poverty. Every VISTA project and every VISTA member aims to end or alleviate poverty, one person, one family, or one block at a time. Second, empowering communities. In contrast to parachuting in and doing good things for people, VISTA members live among and involve community members in planning and carrying out the project. This is often facilitated by your sponsor, but strengthening and improving the community is our long-term goal through learning about values and beliefs, assumptions, community development principles, and principles of good practice. Third, creating sustainable solutions. Whatever you develop or create, maybe it's a process, a system, or some resources, we develop them in such a way that people will be able to use them once you're gone. And finally, but not least, building capacity. Every single VISTA member aims to either increase the size of a project, increase the number of people served by the project, increase the project's efficiency, or improve the project's impact on the community. That is how we measure capacity. So let's spend a moment going over capacity building and what that actually looks like. In the VISTA Mission and Program Goals tutorial that you went through, you learned that the work that you should be doing on your project needs to be focused on building the capacity of your organization as opposed to doing direct service. This is a unique aspect of the VISTA program as it relates to all other AmeriCorps programs. Quickly, capacity building, in essence, is about helping your organization do more with what they have in order to serve more people or operate more efficiently. Direct service is about serving the community in more physical or tangible ways. So to make sure you understand and have a feel for what we're talking about, we're going to play a quick round of this or that to explore the differences between capacity building and direct service. I'm going to start off by reading a service activity, and then you will use your annotation tool, the same one you used on the map earlier in the presentation, where you'll indicate whether you believe the activity is a capacity building or direct service. So let's begin. The first statement is recruiting volunteers to build houses. Use your annotation tool to click whether you think that's direct service or capacity building. Looks like a lot of people are aiming towards capacity building, some people moving towards direct service, some people moving back and forth, a few people bridging the or line, which is kind of funny. But let's see what the survey says. The answer is capacity building. You're probably wondering why. Well, the reason why this is specifically capacity building is because you're not the ones directly building the house, which would be direct service, and you're not constructing the framework. You're building the capacity by recruiting the volunteers who will be able to do the work and be engaged. So in some ways it's a fine-tuned difference, but it's a very important difference.
Let's try another example. How about delivering meals on wheels? So it looks like a lot of people are saying direct service. Like pretty much everyone is saying direct service. Oh, we got one capacity building. Maybe not. All right, and the answer is direct service. In this example, you would actually be dropping off the food and delivering it to people. Capacity building work would be working to establish or improve the Meals on Wheels program, such as putting together policies and procedures, developing partnerships to help with food delivery, etc.
So let's move on to the next one. teaching a financial literacy course. And as you're posting your response in the next few seconds, again, the reason why we're doing this is we give actual examples of what the VISTA members do in terms of capacity building, but we also want to make sure that you understand what's allowed and what's not allowed, just so you have a better understanding of some of the things VISTAs do. See, one person is way off in left field, and maybe they're anticipating moving to figure out what the answer is, but mostly direct service, some capacity building. And the answer is direct service. And this is because in this specific example, it involves hands-on educating individuals. The capacity building element that a VISTA would do would not be teaching the financial literacy course, but the VISTA might be developing the curriculum for the financial literacy course or connecting with organizations who are experts in financial literacy to obtain resources and information.
Let's try another one. How about organizing a fundraiser? Looks like a lot of people are saying capacity building. We have a few who say direct service. A couple people have moved. All right, and the answer is capacity building. This is because you are not actively raising and trying to solicit funds, but you are putting together the plans to have a fundraiser, perhaps making connections for the organization to contact. You could be drafting marketing materials and communication resources and more.
We'll do one final one. Might be a little bit tricky, but we'll see how it goes. Setting up partnerships in the community. Do you think it's capacity building or direct service? I think, Kelly, I think a lot of people have started to move towards the or line. That way they're not wrong.
That's a good possibility. I feel like we have one or two out in left field again here.
It's true. And don't worry, if you get it wrong, you're not in trouble. This is part of education.
This is why we do this.
Exactly. So the answer is capacity building. Now, I'll quickly say I could see why some people might think this is direct service because you're the one actually setting up the partnerships. But the reason why in this example this would be considered capacity building is because you're striving to link the community with organizations, people, funds, and more to eliminate poverty and make a positive difference. You're the one as the VISTA building the capacity of the community by potentially helping us think of new ways to get things done. So now that we've covered that, let's move on to talk about, we know that you probably believe that we have a responsibility to bring an end to poverty, which is the heart of VISTA's mission. And if you are really truly committed to working with communities to do that, then you are in the right place. The four principles that we just discussed guide community development for the VISTA program. Community work requires coordination, even collaboration, and working together towards long-range goals. As you think about the principles we just covered, use the chat panel to let us know which resonates with you or why does it resonate with you. And you'll see the four principles on the screen. Perhaps ending poverty resonates with you because in the chat box, a lot of you said you wanted to help bring people out of poverty in your community. Maybe empowering your community is a passion of yours through working with community stakeholders to identify needs and putting those needs into action with the help and support of the community. Some of you talked about capacity building being really important because it's at the heart of who you are and what you do. You may see a project and identify a plan to increase their effectiveness and engage more individuals. Or some of you talked about sustainability because it really drew you to your VISTA position. You may have an eye for processes and developing them in such a way that they can be used once you've left. And judging by what people are posting in the chat panel right now, it looks like it's kind of all over the board. I see what seems like a higher majority of people talking about empowering your community and capacity building. But the good thing is all of these are important and all of them are useful. And hopefully as a VISTA, as you look at your VAD today and throughout this first week of service, you'll be able to pinpoint aspects of your VAD that touch on all four or at least a couple of these so that you can talk about how to sustain the work you're doing through building capacity, empowering communities, and ending poverty. But just remember, no matter with which principle you have the strongest connection, your work as a VISTA member will address all of these principles during your VISTA service year. Progress in this type of work is slow and incremental, And it's important to know that our work is not just about fixing stuff. It's about sharing perspectives and skills. The results of your work as a VISTA member may not be apparent immediately, nor happen overnight, which is sometimes may be a little frustrating. But once you step back, you'll be able to see the larger changes that have resulted from your work.
Let's now focus on your assignment. And the best way to do that is through reviewing your assignment description, or the VAD. All VADs include the following 3 elements. The first is the project goal, which is related to or identical to the goal of your project. The next one is the objective. The objectives describe what you will achieve by the end of your service year. The objectives are a bridge between the project goal and the member activities. And finally, your VAD includes the member activities. These specify what you will be doing this year. Those activities add up to the objectives and the objectives to the goal. Each of you will have your own VAD, no matter how many of you may be serving or have served at the same project. Because the VAD is your work plan for the year, we strongly recommend that you focus on it with your supervisor in the next few weeks, and that you refer to it throughout the year. There's a worksheet on the Starting VISTA page with the coursework that can help you work out the VAD's various elements. It includes you and your supervisor discussing your tasks step by step. Be sure to download that worksheet and be prepared to discuss your assignment description with your supervisor soon. Set up a meeting with your supervisor right away if you have not already. The VAD is the best place to start a conversation about your service year.
And for those of you who may not know who your supervisor is, hopefully you do since you're at your service site, but this is the week that you'll find out who your supervisor is and more details about other people at the organization you need to get in touch with. And along with that, since we're talking about the VAD, we have another question for you. We know that VISTAs serve around the country, all 50 states, U.S. territories, and do a lot of service. And your VAD likely contains many activities and action steps. Even though you will need support from others to accomplish your VAD specifically outlines what you will be doing as a VISTA member. So as you think about this question, type your answer in the chat panel so everyone will know and learn. According to your VAD, what will you be doing as a VISTA member? And obviously, you know, VAD is VISTA assignment description, but type in the chat just a very brief description of what you specifically will be doing as a VISTA member to eradicate poverty and build capacity in your community and in your organization. As Kara says, developing tools and resources for a national advocacy campaign. Some people say program evaluation. This question is, yes, about specific activities you'll be doing. Building capacity, community outreach, writing grants, which are really important to get funding, continue projects and work leads towards sustainability. Finding opportunities for trainings. I'm assuming that means for people in the community to attend trainings to learn and grow. Development and communications. And I also see education. There's a lot of them coming in, so keep them coming because it's not only useful for us to see, but other VISTAs can see the impact that you'll be making with the 520 people that are joining this webinar. So as you think about this question, and we encourage you to think about this question not just now, but also throughout your year of service about what you're doing and why, we want to ask you a question. Because there was a lot of really wonderful things mentioned in the chat, we want to take a second to ask, so what? So what if you plan a community meeting? If you bring people together around a common issue, what's the next step and what is the goal?
A couple of you mentioned grant writing. So what if you write grants? How will writing a grant actually make a difference in your community?
So what if you recruit volunteers? Many of you talked about needing volunteers to help assist you with your project, but why specifically is it important to have other people assisting with the project?
A few of you also mentioned curriculum development. So what if you were to write a lesson plan? What purpose is this lesson plan achieving, and then how will it impact others in your community?
So the big question we ask is, so what? And we ask this question because we want you to reflect on why. Think about this question in your service activities and when reviewing your VISTA assignment description, as well as when talking with your supervisor. Really take the time to think about the reason behind certain activities, the purpose of the things that you're doing, and the impact of your VISTA service and what you will be doing.
The impact you make this year depends on you, and it also depends on your community, your VISTA project, and a lot of times on good luck. So think about the so what when answering this next question. What impact do you hope to make as a VISTA member? And by impact, we mean what will be the end result, rather than what will your activities look like. What will happen as a consequence of your success? Think about this overarching goal that your service is working towards as you go into your year. The work is not always immediately satisfying, but it is important, and keeping the impact in mind will help you get through when times may be tough or you feel like you're not making a difference. See, a few people have talked about food insecurity, the opioid crisis. A few people mentioned opioid crisis.
And this is the question that Kaylee just asked is an important one because the previous question asked, what will you be doing? And so now it's a segue to say, if you succeed and you complete that, how is your community actually involved? What will actually change in your community? So, you know, some people mentioned they'll be writing grants. So if you write a grant and you get the grant and you win it, how will that make a difference? How will that change your community? I see community disaster mitigation. A lot of them are coming in quickly, so it's hard to read, but I see reducing blight enrichment, allowing students, oh, I lost it, but I think it's allowing students to get a better education and go back to school. The community will be more prepared and better educated in dealing with crises. We'll read a couple more before we continue. More families will have access to affordable housing, which we all know is a crucial and critical need in the United States and abroad. Children will continue to receive food every weekend because the program will be fully funded throughout the year. These are fabulous, and so keep these coming. In a second we're going to continue, but keep these coming because it really does help the VISTAs who are starting service and everyone on this webinar to really realize the impact that they'll be making, but also the change that will come, because we do ask this question if you succeed, but of course our hope and desire is that you do succeed, but again that requires a lot of work on your part, but also support from your supervisor, from your organization, but also from us at the VISTA headquarters team in Washington, D.C. So as you think about this, we want to show you some statistics to show you some impact VISTAs have made that you soon can be part of those statistics and increase them in the future. We talked about the VISTA assignment description accounting for your service during the year. So when we look at some of the things VISTAs have accomplished recently, you'll have a good sense of what you might be doing. And these are the measurable, not the intangibles, which are often the most interesting. So for example, 2017, VISTAs raised over $206 million in cash and in-kind donations for their sponsoring organization. I don't know about you, but that's a huge number, and that's more than twice what Congress has given AmeriCorps VISTA to run the entire program. I don't know of any federal agency that has more than doubled its appropriation, so that's an amazing accomplishment. VISTAs in 2017 recruited, trained, and assigned 800,000 community volunteers who collectively served more than 8 million hours of service. The National Center for Children in Poverty estimates about 16 million children in the U.S., which is about 1 in 5, live below the poverty line. VISTA members made it possible for their sponsors to serve 3 million of those children in after-school programs, tutoring, and assistance in food security. Also, programs supported by VISTA members in 2017 served 140,000 veterans and military families. In a single year, about 8,500 VISTA members built the capacity of more than 4,500 nonprofit and public agencies. About 70% of them, about 70% of those VISTA members served in their hometown. And since 1965, when VISTA was founded, more than 220,000 VISTA members have served. So again, these are just some of the incredible impacts VISTA members like you are making, and will make in the future. So we know we gave you a lot of information, but before we move on, let's do a really quick recap. We just looked briefly at how VISTA relates to other national service programs and the importance it'll make in relation to your VAD. We took some time to dive into the VISTA mission, its 4 key principles, and discussed how they relate to your VISTA assignment description and what you'll be doing as a VISTA member. And finally, we shared with you some of the impact VISTA members have made in the past year. So now we're going to shift to looking at ongoing support during your year of service.
The 2 main websites that will support you throughout the year and even after your service are the VISTA Campus and My AmeriCorps. My.americorps.gov is where you apply to your position, where you did your direct deposit form, and where you can access your VISTA assignment description. It is also where, in a few weeks, you will be able to access your living allowance statements, you can request certain benefits, and print out your service letter. We'll talk about these a little later. The VistaCampus.gov is where you completed your onboarding courses and tutorials. But the VISTA Campus has much more than just the tutorials you completed before today. There are opportunities for ongoing learning and professional development. You can sign up for courses, find other VISTA members, and also learn more about all of your benefits. So on the VISTA Campus, there's too much for us to explore all of it just right now, but we suggest you take some time to explore what is hosted on the VISTA Campus, as it helps you navigate your year of service through building skills, obtaining professional development opportunities, and so much more. Just a quick look at the navigation bar lets you know that there are materials to help you as you live and work as a VISTA. Here is just a snapshot of what's under the work section. You can also locate and reach out to other VISTAs under the Connect and Learn section. Also on the VISTA Campus, we offer webinars on a range of topics related to life as a VISTA, such as living on the living allowance, or a webinar on using the Siegel AmeriCorps Education Award. And there are also webinars about the work, such as building a digital ad campaign or strategizing your funding search. We record all of these sessions and offer them as webinars on demand. So if you miss a session, you can go back and watch it at any time. You will receive an invitation in the coming weeks to a webinar called Learning Opportunities for Service and Beyond, which will help you develop a concrete plan for building skills you'll need to succeed. We also offer 2 longer courses to VISTA members, one on volunteer mobilization and one on resource development and grant writing. These courses combine live webinars, online discussion groups, readings, and assignments. The courses are free, and if you pass, you can receive college credit recommendations. The next round of course offerings is slated for fall. Space is limited, so you can go on the online courses page on VISTA Campus for more details and to apply.
And a lot of you in our earlier chat activities were talking about the activities you'll be doing as a VISTA, so I would strongly encourage you, as Kaylee said, to look at the webinars, and if you're interested or want to participate in those free courses, definitely take a look at them because it is considered part of your service. It's valuable information, and we've gotten a lot of positive feedback about the effectiveness of those webinars and courses, so take a look at those. The next topic is to talk to you about a few key decisions and action items that you will need to complete today and within the next 2 weeks. The first set relates to your VISTA benefits, and we know VISTAs like benefits, so please pay attention. The information you need to make an informed decision is located in the benefits section of the VISTA Campus in one of the tutorials you took on the Starting VISTA page. First is direct deposit. If you have any doubt that your bank account information is correct, the routing and bank account numbers For example, then check again or contact your bank to confirm. If the information is wrong, you will not be paid, and it might be a 2 to 4 week delay, and we don't want that to happen, so make sure the information is entered correctly. Second is your end of service award. Do you want the cash stipend of $1,800, or do you want the Siegel AmeriCorps Education Award, which is currently valued at $5,920? Make sure you read through the end of service benefits section on the benefits hub of the campus to make sure you selected the right one, because there are some rules around whether you can switch or not. So make sure you read that immediately, because otherwise after today you won't be able to make that change. Third is health care. You need to opt for the health care allowance of $7,350 or the health care benefit plan if health coverage is unavailable to you in your state or county. You want to visit the website that's on the screen, AmeriCorpsVista.imglobal.com, in about 2 weeks. And again, visit it in about a week or two because you won't have access to select your benefit yet. But in about 2 weeks, you'll be able to have permission on the site and then can opt for the benefit. You will receive an information, You will receive an email with more information, and I'll just quickly add, this is not health insurance through the VISTA program, it's a health benefit, so make sure you pay attention to the details so that you're best informed and can select the benefit that applies to you the most. So right now we just covered the critical benefits that VISTA talk about and have questions about, but we want you to know that if you have questions about other benefits at any time during your service, your first point of reference is to look at the VISTA benefits section of the VISTA campus for your answer. Again, you'll want to make sure to look at the details about health care, end of service benefit, but also you may have questions about federal loan forbearance, child care, how to access the online courses that we discussed, and more, because you'll want to know when and how to take the necessary steps to make use of your benefits. Most benefits require action on your part. They're not automatic, so please pay attention. If you cannot find the answer on the VISTA Campus Benefits section, then your second point of reference is the VISTA Member Handbook, which is also located on the campus. If all else fails and you really can't find any information, you can contact the VISTA Member Support Unit, VMSU, and you'll call them regarding your benefits, help with my.americorps.gov, and general assistance. To reach the VMSU, you need to contact the National Service Hotline.
So there are a few other action items that require your immediate attention. The first one, if you have not already completed your onboarding forms in your my.americorps.gov account, then you are on the verge of not entering service today. And if you especially have not accepted the terms and conditions of service, you are definitely not becoming a VISTA today. So please ensure you complete those forms as soon as possible. The second thing is you need to make a copy of your VAD and set up a meeting to discuss your project and your service year with your supervisor. And the last thing is that you need to get fingerprinted, preferably this week, and submit a criminal history questionnaire, if applicable, to us back here at VISTA headquarters. You should have the fingerprinting materials, and if not, you can get them from your supervisor. And so we'll talk a little bit more about the fingerprinting process. So as we mentioned last week, we will need your fingerprints in order to run a background check. We do this to protect the community members and volunteers we work with, and that includes you. First, you need to get fingerprinted, as we just mentioned. Second is that when you applied, we asked if you had ever been convicted of a crime. You may not have disclosed everything. You may have only gone 10 years back, or you thought a DUI was a minor traffic violation, or that you were a minor and it was expunged. If you fail to disclose any conviction in your my.americorps.gov application, please fill out the criminal history questionnaire that's included with the fingerprint cards and send it in as instructed. When the FBI report comes back, we will compare it to your disclosures in the application and on the form. If everything aligns, you will not hear from us. If there is a conviction that you have not disclosed to us, it is grounds for dismissal, and we will have extensive follow-up. Your supervisor has the fingerprint cards for you. Each person will get 2 fingerprinting cards and instructions. You are responsible for getting fingerprinted and submitting your fingerprints to us. The VISTA program is providing you with a $25 fingerprinting subsidy included in your first living allowance payment. You should also be provided a return UPS envelope, or your project may be able to pay to ship the fingerprints back to VISTA headquarters. Please get fingerprinted as soon as possible. The deadline to submit your fingerprints is Thursday, October 4th. Failure to submit your fingerprints within this time frame could result in termination from service. So please don't let that happen, and do it as soon as possible.
And if for some reason your supervisor tells you that they do not have the fingerprints, so that your supervisor should contact your CNCS state office immediately, today or tomorrow, to make sure you get those, because as Kayla said, you do not want to miss that deadline. And speaking of CNCS state office, we want to show you a graphic reminder of the list of resources that's on the Starting VISTA page in the coursework that you took earlier. On the campus, you can search the word support to find it. Of course, you can manage your own support by taking time to navigate vistacampus.gov and my.americorps.gov so that you are familiar with them and know where to go. You'll want to know who to access, who your supervisor is, who your CNCS program officer is, and more, so that if you have questions or concerns, you have the point of contact. And of course, when in doubt, if you really have exhausted all other options, you can contact the VMSU through the National Service Hotline, but again, keep in mind, there's about 8,500 VISTA members serving every year, so the fewer calls you can make to them, the better, because it might take a little bit of time for them to respond and get back to you, but they are a fabulous resource if you need them, and they're there to support you throughout your year of service.
Now, one of the greatest things about being a VISTA member is being part of the wonderful family of AmeriCorps VISTA, and as a VISTA community member, we want you to show your VISTA pride. You never know where you may make a connection with someone else who knows about the program. You can put the AmeriCorps VISTA logo on your business card, in your email signature, and on your organization's website and brochures. The more visible you are, the more support you get for both your project and the AmeriCorps VISTA program as a whole. That means more VISTA members and communities doing the work we need to get done. The web links in the chat lead to places you can get AmeriCorps VISTA publications and gear to use in your office and represent VISTA in the field. And don't forget to take pictures and share them with us through our Twitter and Facebook accounts. We may well share your story or retweet your photo. You will receive an email with instructions on how to order your free VISTA polo, lapel pin, tote bag, t-shirt, water bottle, and journal about next week once your oath has been submitted and all forms and courses have been completed. So stay tuned.
So now we're going to discuss the oath of service. And before we get to that, I just want to mention, we know there's a lot of you on the webinar. You may or may not have the oath printed. If you do not have a hard copy of the oath printed, please do not print it right now. We're going over some very important instructions. And because there's almost 500 people on this webinar, we need everyone to pay attention. So we're going to give you the instructions. If you do not have a printed copy, you can take out your cell phone and take a screenshot of the next couple of slides to make sure you fill out the oath form correctly. And then after the webinar, you can print your oath. I also want to say you typically will need a supervisor or a witness in the room with you, so if you don't have that, maybe you can shout around the corner and have someone join you for this part of the session. But before we actually have Kaylee administer the oath of service to you, we want to go over some of the details of it to make sure that you understand what it means and how to be involved. The oath of service is a very important step in you becoming a VISTA member. Because of the importance of the topic, we're going to pause the chat at this time to make sure you can stay focused. We will be posting instructions in the chat regarding the oath. We want to make sure everyone sees the information that we're sharing. Once we're done with the oath, we will reopen the chat up to comments. If you have any questions during this time, you can certainly post them in the Q&A panel, and again, our team will answer them as soon as we can, or we'll hold some for the end of the webinar. So, now you're almost ready to take the oath of service. To do this, again, you will need a copy of the VISTA member oath form, AmeriCorps VISTA oath form, which your supervisor should have given you, or you can download and print after this webinar. Remember that you will also need another person in the room with you who will witness you signing the oath form. We are going to go over a few very important instructions because we need to make sure this is filled out accurately. These seem pretty obvious, but you'd be surprised as to how many we get filled out incorrectly. Failure to submit a correct oath according to these instructions will result in a delay of your becoming a VISTA member, and it will also delay you receiving your benefits, and we really don't want that to happen. Please pay close attention to the information we display on the screen, as well as mentioned verbally. And again, if you don't have the form printed out right now, take a note of the information or take your phone out and take a screenshot of the next couple of screens, and so you'll have the information. We do not want you to miss any important instructions while you're trying to fill out the oath. So, we will begin. For those of you who don't have a printed oath form, take a picture of it, but let's go ahead and get started. In box number 1, obviously you should know, you should print your full legal name, which is typically the one that you use in your my.americorps.gov account. We need to make sure that it matches up with your account so that we can tie it to your account and get you activated. But again, box number 1, print your full legal name. In box number 2, give the name of the organization where you're serving, which is oftentimes your sponsoring organization. You want to make sure it's accurate again. In box number 3, by now you should know the city and state where you're serving, so go ahead and put that on the oath. And again, if you don't have your oath, just take note of the instructions and we'll get back to you on that soon. In box number 4, you need to make sure you put today's date, September 4th, 2018. Typically, we put it in the format 09/04/2018, today. And then in box number 5, it's important that you put the CNCS official who is administering the oath of service. The first name is Kayleigh, as you see on the screen, Kayleigh, and the last name is Ramovich, Remavich. You will also see that posted in the chat so that you can make sure you spell it correctly and we can get your oath in on time.
All right, so now that the logistics are out of the way, let's consider the oath you're about to take, because you should not take it lightly. This is the same oath taken by all federal employees up to and including the Vice President. The President's oath is a little bit different. So in this oath, it includes the phrase, to defend the Constitution of the United States. Defend. This is not a call to arms. For some, in some positions, it may be. But for most of us, defense of the Constitution may be just the opposite of using arms. The Constitution is not an administration, not even a flag. Rather, it embodies the principles that elevate us from a loosely organized group on the North American continent to a civil society. We're pledging to defend the document that contains our civil rights. It also includes the phrase, against all enemies. Let us all as community builders, as change agents, and simply as citizens, choose our enemies carefully. More often, an enemy is a reflection of ourselves in bad light. Build bridges before you make enemies, and we will all profit. In the context of VISTA, of course, the enemy is what? Poverty. All right, 2 more things about the oath. First, you may replace the word swear with the word affirm, if you so choose. You may also omit the phrase, so help me God. I want to recognize that since we're all in different locations around the country, scattered in so many sites in so many states, that we don't have the benefit of hearing each other's voices as we recite this. But it's pretty cool to know that as you're taking the oath, scores of your fellow VISTAs are doing the same thing at the same time in rooms all across America. It may seem awkward to recite the oath aloud when you're alone in a room, but really, you're taking the oath for yourself. So do it for you and make it count. Now, please raise your right hand and recite the oath aloud with me. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I'm about to enter. So help me God.
Congratulations.
Yay!
Woohoo! We're really excited, as we said, because now you are a VISTA member, joining the newest group of AmeriCorps VISTA members, so you should celebrate. But not just yet. Don't celebrate too early. Before it's actually official, and if you really want to get paid, which I know most of you do, there's some very important next steps. So we're going to go over this in detail to make sure you understand what the next steps are.
So the first thing you need to do, you need to sign and date the form on the line in the white area where it says AmeriCorps VISTA member signature. Then you'll need to hand it to your supervisor or witness and have them sign and date it as well. Then, once you and your witness, preferably your supervisor, but it could be another staff member, have signed it, please scan a copy of your oath and save it to your computer as a PDF document. This is important. Do not take a photo of the form. You need to scan the form in your office's scanner so that it generates a PDF form. Once you have that PDF form, you're going to attach the scanned copy of the oath to an email and send it to us at the VISTA Member Support Unit. And that email is at the bottom of the page. It's vmsu@cns.gov. And this needs to be done today. In that email, you need to use the subject line oath-first name, last name, today's date, 09/04/2018. It may seem like it's not that important, but the subject line is critical because of the number of emails the VMSU receives from our thousands of candidates and members. The longer it takes for us to find your oath, it can cause a delay. So please don't let that happen, and please follow the instructions carefully. All right, to summarize. So first, you need to put today's date as the date entered on duty. That's 09-04-2018. You need to list my name, Kaylee Ramovich, as it's spelled on the slide, as the CNCS official. Then you, the VISTA, need to sign by the AmeriCorps VISTA member signature and date it at the bottom of the page. You also need to have your witness sign below your signature. And then lastly, you need to email a scanned copy of your oath in PDF form to the VMSU at vmsu@cns.gov with the subject line of oath-your name-today's date. And this must be done today.
One important note on the oath is it's your responsibility to make sure it's correct. Please note that when you do email it to the VMSU, you will not get a response confirming a receipt due to the number and the workload. The VISTA Member Support Unit will only reach out to those people who are missing an oath or did not fill it out correctly. So please just make sure it's correct before submitting it. And as Kaylee said, pay attention to the instructions on the screen as well as in the chat. So now that we've taken care of that, we want to know what you thought. You'll see a poll on the right-hand side of your screen. Again, if you're on a smartphone or a tablet, you will not be able to do the poll, which is fine. But for everyone else, we really take heart as to what people say and feel about these webinars. We want to improve this one, but also other webinars in the future. So please take a moment to answer the questions. We'll leave it up for a few minutes. We'd like to be able to improve this webinar for you in future VISTAs to come. And while we leave the poll up, we know that we've given a lot to think about. And we do want to take time for your questions. Remember that you can ask a question at any time using the Q&A panel located to the right of your screen. But I'll also ask our operator, Robin, to let us know how to ask a question by phone.
And thank you. At this time, if you do have a question from the phone line, you may press star followed by the number 1. Please unmute your line and record your name clearly as prompted to be introduced. Again, with any questions from the phone line, please press star followed by the number 1.
Thank you, Robin. We'll start with a few questions that came into the Q&A panel, and thank you again to Kaylee and Charles for assisting and answering a lot of the questions in the webinar platform. So one question that I see that came in is, I was wondering where to log my hours. I'll quickly answer it by saying the VISTA program is 365 days, so it is a full year commitment, and it is a full-time commitment, so most VISTAs serve 40 hours a week. But in terms of where to log your hours, that's a question to ask your supervisor, because the VISTA program leaves it up to your supervisor to determine if they track your hours via an online system, if it's a paper system, but that's a good question to ask your supervisor so that you know how to track your hours and they can keep track of that throughout your year of service. Let me see, I'm going to go through a couple of questions that were answered on the webinar that might be useful for everyone, and then I'll go back to Robin for questions on the phone. There was a question, if you can't find the oath form, Scott had posted the copy of the oath form in the chat, and in a few minutes I'll have him repost it again just to make sure that people have access to the form if they don't already have it. And let me see, lots of questions coming in. So just taking a quick second to scroll through and find the ones before they keep moving. There was a question about fingerprinting earlier, and if you did already get fingerprinted, you still do need to get fingerprinted again. That's only because we are not able to access the records of previous fingerprints, and we can't share the results with anyone as well. But you do have to use the fingerprint cards that your supervisor will give you. Again, if your supervisor does not have them, they need to reach out directly to your CNCS state office and have them send those to you immediately.
And tagging on to fingerprints, we had a few people that had questions about if something was expunged, do you have to list it on that criminal history form? And the answer is yes. You need to list anything that has come up on your record in the past on your criminal history form. When we run the FBI report, we're going to double check that everything listed on that report matches what you told us. So if you're in doubt, go ahead and list it.
There's a question from Rachel Torres. Rachel, I might just ask you to email me, Eric Powell, because I think your email is very specific to your project site. But in terms of the AmeriCorps onboarding forms that myself and Charles had emailed you about, as well as the pre-work on the courses that you took on the VISTA campus, you do still have to do that as part of the VISTA program, even if your organization has you filling out separate forms. Robin, I'll turn to you now. Are there any questions that have queued up on the phone?
Yes, we do. Our first question is from Rakasha. Your line's open.
Hi. I just wanted to ask if you could spell the name of the person who administered the oath. I think it was Kaylee. If you wouldn't mind doing that again.
Sure. The first name is Kaylee, K-A-Y-L-E-I-G-H. And the last name is Ramovich, R-E-M as in Michael, A, V as in Victor, I-C-H.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you. Before we take the next question, if there's any further questions, so please press star followed by number 1. And our next question is Amber Hamilton. Your line's open.
Hi, Amber.
Hi. I think they kind of answered it. You guys are going to put the oath information where to access it in the web chat, correct?
Yeah, so I did ask Scott, my colleague, to post the link in the chat, but you can also just go to vistacampus.gov/oath. But he'll post it in the chat again so that if you don't have the form with you, you can just download the PDF and print it.
Okay, thank you.
Before I go back to Robin, I'll answer this question. Will VISTA provide transportation assistance, such as providing bus passes? That's not something that the VISTA program as a whole does, because every VISTA program and project is different, and not everyone needs or wants it. But some individual VISTA projects, like your supervisor or the organization, some of them do have the ability to do that. So if you think you're going to be serving and need that, or want to know if that's an option, that would be another question to ask your supervisor if they have any kind of transportation benefit. And actually, since I'm talking about transportation, I will quickly say, if your VAD requires you to do any service-related transportation, such as driving from your office to meet with a community partner or another organization, that reimbursement needs to be provided to you from your VISTA organization. it would be at whatever reimbursement rate that they have for their organization, but they would need to capture how to reimburse you for that mileage if you were to drive for required service-related transportation. Robin, back to you.
And thank you. At this time, I'm seeing no further questions, but as a reminder, it is star followed by number 1 should you have a question.
There was another question about service letters being available to apply for certain benefits. There are 3 service letters available to you as a currently serving VISTA member, but those service letters will not be available to you in your My AmeriCorps account until about a week. You'll notice a lot of things take about a week, and that's just because it takes time. We have to get your oath form immediately, but then the VISTA Member Support Unit has to go through the process of making sure everyone is activated and considered in service. But once that happens, you'll see a new link in your my.americorps.gov account called My Service Letters, and you can use that to print, to give to a landlord, to apply for public benefits, anything that you need. There was one other question I saw about healthcare. It's kind of a similar answer in that, again, you have to wait about a week to a week and a half before you can actually go to the AmeriCorpsVista.imglobal.com website and select which healthcare benefit you're in, because we have to activate you from our side, but then the International Medical Group has to download that roster of people and make sure your account is active in their system. So about a week to 10 days for the healthcare option for you to select. And another question about fingerprints. For the fingerprints, I was told we need an IRN number in order to make sure the fingerprints reach headquarters. So this is why we say there's nothing additional that you need to write on the fingerprints in terms of a code or a specific number. This is why you need to make sure that you use the fingerprints that your VISTA supervisor gives you, because those fingerprints have a specific code on them that are designated for the VISTA program. So again, if you don't have that, get it from your supervisor or your state office, but there's no additional information you need. The fingerprints will come with instructions, so anything that you need to know, you'll get the 2 fingerprinting cards with a 1-page document of instructions as to how to fill out the fingerprints. And the fingerprints should come with a self-addressed, prepaid UPS return envelope so that you as the VISTA do not have to pay to ship them back to headquarters. Either the VISTA program will pay for it, or your VISTA supervisor might be able to pay for it. One other question before I go back to Robin is, what if we do not have a witness? Is it too late to have that done tomorrow? Because we have 500 people on the webinar, we really need the oath submitted today, just because, as we said, the later you submit your oath, the later it means you're activated, which means the later you're paid. Ideally, you should have a witness, even if it's not your supervisor, if there's someone else in the office next door who can witness you signing it. Obviously, getting it in tomorrow is better than not getting it in at all, but if you can at least find someone before you leave the office today to make sure you can get it in today, that would be ideal. Robin, any other questions on the phone?
One moment, one just came in, so one moment, please.
And while we wait for that question, for the oath form, it does not matter if the oath form is typed or handwritten. What's critical is that the actual AmeriCorps VISTA signature and the witness signature are actually signed and not typed. But if you want to type or handwrite the information at the top, just make sure it's legible, please. Robin, whenever you're ready.
One moment, please. Melanie, your line's open.
Hi, I just have a quick question about the fingerprints. When we were in Buffalo, a group of about 10 of us VISTAs were in Buffalo, we just had our fingerprints done through them, through our VISTA leaders. Is that sufficient for what's needed?
Normally I would say no. I'm going to say, so the reason why I'm hesitating is because if you had it done through your VISTA leader, it's unlikely they were done on our fingerprinting cards. Typically, if people were fingerprinted before by any entity, whether it's your organization or another group, you would still have to get them fingerprinted again for your VISTA term of service. The only way you would not is if you were fingerprinted a week ago and if your VISTA leaders had the actual fingerprint card that we gave them, then it should be okay. But you'd have to find out where they got the fingerprint cards and if they had the AmeriCorps VISTA code written on them.
Okay, thank you so much.
And in terms of fingerprinting, there's a few more things that came in quickly. Does the criminal history exclude me from serving as a VISTA member? Not necessarily. We do have VISTA members that have criminal histories that are allowed to serve because we know that there's plenty of reasons why. There's only 3 automatic disqualifying factors that would immediately not allow someone to serve, and that's if you committed murder, if you committed any violence against a minor, or if you had a sex offense on the public registry website. Everything else is negotiable to a certain extent, but that's why we need the fingerprints done. And if you have anything, as Kaylee said earlier, if you have anything that you did not disclose in your My AmeriCorps application, but that might come up on the fingerprints, that's why when you get your fingerprint kit, you should fill out the criminal history disclosure form to disclose anything that you may have failed to disclose on the application to make sure that we can cross-reference it and follow up with you if there's any questions. And for fingerprinting also, you don't necessarily have to go to a police office. Many VISTAs do because it's easy and it's fairly local, but there are sometimes other places you can go. Normally at this point, since we've been doing this process for quite a while, your supervisor most likely has a general idea of where the best place to go to get fingerprints is, but certainly if you're not sure, if you have questions, another place you can check is the VISTA Campus discussion forums. If you just go to Connect and Learn and click on forums, several VISTAs will post where they've been able to get discount or free or inexpensive fingerprints done. So there's a lot of resources out there, but because we're located in headquarters and you are all located all across the country and territories, we're not always told of specific locations that VISTAs members find.
I would add, sometimes if you're serving at or near a local college or university, sometimes the police station or public safety office on campus is able to help you do fingerprints. So it might be worthwhile to ask there as well.
Great. Here's a quick question we'll ask about benefits. Someone was asking, how do we assign or give our end of service award to our dependent? This is one of the things that makes the VISTA program very different from all the AmeriCorps programs have different elements. And so if you were serving with AmeriCorps State and National, if you're over 55, you can transfer your education award to a dependent. However, just based on the legislation of the VISTA program, the education award is not transferable. So as a VISTA, if you select the education award, only you are able to use it. So just keep that in mind. But again, you can use it towards paying off federal student loans, or you can use it towards future education. Robin, are there any other questions that came in over the phone?
Yes, we have one from Janae Garrett. Ma'am, your line's open.
Hi, I have a question about the oath form. My site is actually closed today. I'm in Pensacola, Florida, and we are having some bad weather, and I'm not sure if the site will be open again tomorrow. We're just, I guess, waiting on the executive director. So would I be exempt, or would I be able to do the oath form later?
So what I'm going to ask you to do is, you probably got a couple of my emails. If you could send me an email, Eric Powell, and then in the email just also include FL, the 2-letter abbreviation for Florida, FL@cns.gov, the same domain as my email address. I'll be able to respond to you offline because there are sometimes some limited instances where weather does affect VISTAs and we have to troubleshoot to find the best way we can make it work.
Okay.
But yeah, just send me an email and I'll respond either later today or early tomorrow morning.
Okay. Well, that's all I needed. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you. I'm seeing no further questions.
Okay. Someone says, I don't understand step 9 in the instructions I posted on the oath. I'm trying to go back to it, but step number 9 wasn't talking about your email. Step 9 was saying when you're getting ready to submit the oath, you need to write an email, send it to vmsu@cns.gov. That's the email you send it to, but make sure you correctly put the subject line as OATH, then your name, and then 09/04/2018. So it has nothing to do with your email. You just need to send the email to the VMSU to make sure they get your oath. I'm going to kind of quickly go through a few of these because I don't want to drag this on too long, but I want to get some questions answered. Let me see. Do you include speeding tickets in the background check? Yes. Usually minor traffic violations are not necessary, but since I'm not the fingerprinting expert and only we have 2 or 3 people in the VISTA program that do, it's better to include it just in case it shows up and in case they have any questions. We know that fingerprinting does sometimes cost a little bit. That's why whether it costs you $0 or $20 or $35, the VISTA program does automatically add an additional $25 fingerprinting subsidy to your first living allowance payment to offset the fingerprints. So whatever it costs you, we give you $25 to offset that cost. And what other questions are in here? Lots of questions about fingerprints. Some of these I'll answer offline because they're quite personal. Didn't need all that detail, but thank you. And yeah, let me see. Joseph, if you're still on the webinar, send me an email separately because your situation is different from everyone else's, and I already know about it, so we'll talk to you offline. Celestina, if you wrote my name, Eric Powell, as the CNCS official, that's fine. Kaylee's the person that's administering it, but we're both on the webinar, so as long as you submit it to the VMSU, we'll make sure that it gets counted correctly. Yes, if you don't have any additional questions, you're welcome to leave. We encourage you to stay on for 5 more minutes just in case additional questions come up. We'll be on the webinar for another 5 minutes just answering any final questions. If you do have a court date in the next few weeks, it's important to let your supervisor know immediately because they'll need to know how to count that towards your time. And speaking of time as a VISTA, you know that you have 10 personal days and 10 sick days as a VISTA. You're not allowed to use your 10 personal days within the first 3 months of service or within the last month of service. All those details are on the VISTA member handbook, which just makes sure you pay attention to that. But definitely check with your supervisor. Anytime you want to request time off, if you're sick, if you're ill, it's always a good idea to put that in writing to your supervisor so that they can follow up as they need to. Yes, the $25 fingerprinting subsidy is included in your first living allowance payment, and it's to offset fingerprinting specifically. So if you're fortunate and fingerprints are free, then you just get an additional $25. If you do need to take time off for religious purposes, again, check with your supervisor. I should have mentioned, in addition to your 10 personal and 10 sick days, you also receive the one-off federal holidays that your organization observes. So if your organization is closed for Veterans Day, you would automatically get that day off in addition to your regular leave. The one caveat to that is if your organization is closed for more than 2 days at a time, like over the winter holidays, if they're closed for a week or 2, you do not get that as free vacation. You'd either have to work with them to still do work during that time, or you would need to use personal leave, which is the same with if you're taking time off for any specific holidays that you want to observe. A bunch of questions coming in about food stamps. Food stamps is not a benefit of the VISTA program. It's a separate federal agency that runs that program. If you want to apply for food stamps, that's up to you. Just know that if you are not already receiving food stamps and you do apply, your VISTA living allowance is income, and food stamps will factor in your living allowance towards your eligibility for food stamps. If you have questions about that, again, follow up with your food stamps administrator or check the VISTA Campus discussion forums where VISTAs are posted other things about food stamps. If you're one of the VISTAs that are getting paid by a grant, and if you are, you would have received an email from me last week about getting paid by a grant, the $25 fingerprinting subsidy should be coming from your grant project. Is there a workplace? Another question is there a workplace drug test? So separate from the fingerprinting that the VISTA program does, some specific nonprofit organizations where VISTA serve may have their own separate fingerprinting process, or they may also do a drug test. You also have to adhere to their policies, so if they do request you do a drug test, you need to adhere to that, but there's not a separate drug test through the VISTA program. We just do the large fingerprinting FBI check. Robin, one more check to see if there's any questions over the phone.
Yes, we have Janae Garrett. Your line's open, ma'am.
Okay. My question is about the sick leave and the 10 days that you have. What if a VISTA member becomes pregnant or, you know, has to take leave for maternity leave? How is that factored?
So without going into too much detail, something like that is something that oftentimes, but not always, is at least known somewhat ahead of time. So that would be something you need to, as soon as, if someone was aware of that or thought they might need it, that would be something for them to communicate with their supervisor, but also with their state office as soon as possible, because since you are limited to that leave time, there's very, very, very limited cases where a state office could grant you an additional 5 days for emergency situations, but beyond that, it infringes on going beyond what the VISTA program is allowed. So, but that's why we always say make sure to let your supervisor and your state office know, and they could let you know if there was an additional 5 days that was permitted, or if you had to make it work within the 10 personal and 10 sick days that you have.
Okay.
Great question, though. And I should actually add to that, not just if someone's pregnant, but sometimes there are situations where someone knows they may have a medical procedure coming up, or they might have to go to the doctor emergently, and emergently, that's not a word, emerging.
Immediately?
Thank you. Thank you. That's why I have coworkers here, because I don't know what I'm talking about. So in cases like that, especially if you know you have a medical situation coming up, the sooner you let everyone, the state office and the supervisor know, the better, because it also could be that you're planning a VISTA activity or something at that time, and if they can work around your schedule to make it work, it's always, more information is better than less.
Okay.
Robin?
And I'm showing no further questions.
So I'll answer a couple more questions on here, and then we'll wrap up for those people who are still on. Do we need to report an incident we did before we turned 18? Yes. Again, our FBI fingerprinting background check is pretty extensive, and that's why Kaylee said even if something has been expunged, it'll probably show up, because usually it's been expunged at the state level and not necessarily the federal level. So obviously what you do is up to you, but our recommendation is that you should report it, because if you do not report it and it does show up, there's extensive follow-up, and then there's a question as to why someone was withholding information. Again, it's not meant to scare you. We just want to make sure that you are fully prepared and adequately able to serve as a VISTA member. Do we get to use the course time towards our 40 hours? I assume that means if you attend a webinar or if you participate in our college-accredited online courses, does that count towards your 40 hours of service? Yes. But again, make sure your supervisor is aware of it, because if they come by your computer and see you're watching a webinar, it's completely approved, but they might just want a heads up to wonder why you're taking a little bit of time away from your VAD to learn and be educated. But yes, that is all part of your time. And yes, again, if you had fingerprints done in a prior AmeriCorps term of service, you would need to get your fingerprints done again, especially because the VISTA program's fingerprinting process is a little bit different from other AmeriCorps programs. I will say, as it looks like we're pretty much at the end of the questions, before we go to the final slide, I'll say certainly we know you have questions throughout your service year. Some of you have already emailed myself, Eric Powell, and I'm going to do my best to get back to most of you by tomorrow, but again, there's 500 of you, so it's a lot of emails to get back. But as we mentioned earlier, if you have questions about your VAD or your service site or where to report or things like that, those are questions directly for your supervisor. Things like, what's the dress code and who do I report to, and do I have more than one supervisor? If you have larger questions about the VISTA program, about programmatic things, about how your VISTA project got a grant, those are questions you can direct directly to your CNCS state office. And if you don't know how to contact them, you use the two-letter state abbreviation. So if you're serving in Texas, you would send an email to tx@C as in Charlie, N as in Nicholas, S as in Samuel, .gov, tx@cns.gov, and for whatever state you're serving in, that email will go to everyone in that state office, and the person in charge of your VISTA project can respond. Also, if you have questions related to the virtual member orientation, first you can check online on the VISTA Campus. You can certainly email me, but again, it'll take me a while to respond due to the number of people there. But the final thing is, if you really haven't been able to find the answer you want on the VISTA Campus, in the benefits section, in the VISTA Member Handbook, or if you really just need some assistance, don't forget that you always have direct contact with the VISTA Member Support Unit, and you can contact them through the National Service Hotline. One final check with Robin to see if there's any final question on the phone before we wrap up.
And one moment, please. There's a question online, but I didn't get the recorded name. If you queued up for a question, your line's open. You may ask your question.
Hi, I think that was me. I had it on mute. This is Sheila Allen, and I'm calling, I'm asking about the oath, the project sponsor. That's not my VISTA sponsor, right? That's the place that I'm working with for VISTA?
Yes.
Okay.
The most important thing on the oath is that you clearly spell your name correctly, but the project sponsor is, yes, your VISTA sponsor, which in some cases is the same name as where you're serving. Sometimes it's different, but we have both names in our system, so as long as you put one of them, we'll be able to make sure it gets attributed to you.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
The last thing I'll say, oh, I'm sorry, Robin, go ahead.
I was just going to say thank you. I'm seeing no further questions.
Okay. The last thing I'll say, the final question is, what is the work week? Is it Sunday through Saturday? Again, that's up to your VISTA supervisor. Most VISTA projects, just like most organizations, are Monday through Friday. There might be some that are Tuesday to Saturday. You need to check with your supervisor to find out what the work week is, what your service hours are. Do you serve 8 to 4:30, 9 to 5, what the dress code is? There's a lot of questions that we as the VISTA program cannot answer because we work directly with your supervisors to make sure that they provide that information directly to you. And as we know there's additional questions, we're going to move towards the end because we want to make sure we wrap up on time, but also making sure we provide you the support that we need throughout your VISTA service. So we want to
thank you all so much for your participation today, and we want to again welcome you to the AmeriCorps VISTA program and the VISTA family. We wish you much success on your year of service, and we want to leave you with this quote from Lyndon Johnson. On your idealism and on your success rests much of our hope for the final elimination of poverty in our American life. We hope you have a great first day of service, and good luck this year.
Thank you, everyone, and thanks to Kaylee and Charles, my great coworkers, for the assistance on this webinar.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.